Hello and welcome. So instantly, I'm going to just kick straight off. In case you haven't been paying attention, Battlefield 5 got announced, and there is a strong divide between people based on this one person right here. And the strong divide is that she shouldn't be there, or I don't give a fuck, basically. Which kind of leads me to believe that people are stupid. Mostly because the stronger arguments you see are this isn't historically accurate. Women didn't fight in World War II, which is bullshit straight off the bat. Ignoring real basic things like, resistance elements, which had people of all walks of life fighting because, it's a resistance, that's how that works. There was a lot of strong elements of women forces. If you type in women soldiers not even World War II, just WW2, right? And then hit search. Immediately, just the very first result, beginning in December 1941, 350,000 women served in the United States Armed Forces during World War II. That's just the United States. The trailer has British soldiers in it. From what you can gather, most of them, if not all of them, are British, purely on accent alone, some dialect as well. Women had a large part in the war, and I will admit, the one of the first things stated, and it's quite obvious, is that women weren't allowed in frontline roles. But that didn't stop them, to be honest. They were eligible to volunteer for the WAAF, the ATS, and the WRNS, and were required to serve throughout Britain as well as overseas if needed. So a lot of that is searchlight operating, and they were allowed to be nurses and engineers. They did a lot of metal work, especially the people that stayed at home. They would make bullets and bombs and uniforms and that kind of thing, or work in administrative jobs. But anyone that was put into any of these military outfits were given training. They had to use firearms. They had to learn to use firearms. They had to do this for just-in-case measures. Like, every woman was expected to be able to perform as well as any man they had in their military. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people, didn't give a fuck. Again, right here, despite being limited in their roles, there was a great amount of respect between the men and women in the mixed batteries. In fact, one report states many men were amazed that women could make adequate gunners despite their excitable temperament, lack of technical instincts, their lack of interest in aeroplanes, and their physical weaknesses. While women still faced discrimination from some of the highly stereotypical older soldiers and officers who did not like women playing with their guns, sound familiar to what people are saying today? Women were still given rifle practice and taught to use anti-aircraft guns while serving in the batteries. They were told that this was in case the Germans invaded. However, if that were to ever happen, they would be evacuated immediately. But then, beyond that, you have, it's not as well known purely because of, it's quite obvious, a lot of women spies and a lot of women agents. Some famous women spies, just go through some names, you can Google them yourselves later if you like. Christina Skarbek, apparently she was a British intelligence, refused her services because she was female. That attitude didn't last long. Having initially approached the secret intelligence service MI6, she later found a home with its paramilitary rival, the SOE, which is a very strong branch where a lot of women spies went. Quite a lot, because nobody expected women spies because nobody expected women. So, it works. Lise de Bisac, I'm not sure if that's correct pronunciation, but again, SOE's first female agents, well, one of them anyway. So again, the SOE, so probably a good Google there would be the SOE. And then Nancy Wake. Nancy Wake's one of my favourites. She was the one I was talking about a minute ago. She was married to a wealthy Frenchman, later tortured to death by the Gestapo. She became their most wanted enemy with a 5 million franc price on her head. Known as the White Mouse, she initially stayed in France when the war began, running an underground escape line for fugitives and escaped prisoners of war. When finally arrested, she managed to escape, making her way to England and the welcoming arms of the SOE, there's the acronym again. Returning to France by parachute, she began organising her enormous private army, arranging deliveries of supplies, weapons and ammunition for some 7,000 resistors. She also insisted on fighting alongside them. As one former comrade described her, the most feminine woman I know until the fighting starts, and then she's like 5 men. So I think that alone could have been an answer to all you bellyachers out there that EA and DICE have given in to feminists and given in to political correctness, and women didn't fight or serve in World War II, that you're just uneducated and stupid. And the better thing to do would actually type women in World War II into Google and just educate yourselves a little bit before you go on and talk. Now, I'm only ever scratching the surface here. We've got another one. It's at Hellos, one of the less famous SOE female agents, not to overlook because she still existed and she still did her job. Again, another spy for World War II for the UK, and that's just that's just scratching the surface. So, people are upset, and they're upset because, well, they say because they wanted a historically accurate World War II game, and that women fighting isn't historically accurate for World War II, which is wrong. In fact, there is far more going on in the trailer that is less historically accurate, or, for lack of knowledge, maybe just a bit nonsensical. The trailer literally starts with the head of what I can only believe is a marble horse statue chained to the front of a tank, which seems a bit excessive and probably against military regulations to be allowed. Just allowed. It then later goes on to show what I can only assume through not being able to see any sort of badge is a UK paratrooper, I'm guessing that from the uniform and the maroon beret alone, wielding a katana. I don't recall reading that anywhere, that the paratroopers had access and were carrying around katanas. I just don't. Not too long after that, we actually get to see gameplay, script as it may be. But he shoots a live grenade mid-air with an MG42, taking out an enemy fighter. Like, that's the most fucking bullshit action movie thing I've ever seen. It was cool, and I liked it. But you pick women over that. I ask you, I'm sure there's some people out there, there's got to be some people out there who feel very strongly either way on this argument, that have access to a live grenade, an MG42, a firing range, and have the appropriate safety regulations to do so. Please, Mythbusters this for me. How easy is it to shoot a live grenade out of mid-air with an MG42? Ignore the fact that it just happens to take out the plane as well. Because I'm pretty confident it's not fucking easy. And trailer goes on. You get to see some cool action. It's very Michael Bay, very explosion-y, but very pretty. A lot more colourful and visceral. Which leads me to believe that, very obviously from what they were talking about beforehand and a little bit afterwards, character customization is a bigger element in this Battlefield game. Hence why we have the woman, which is good. It's showing both elements. It's like, hey, now you get the choice. There are people running around in war paint, blue war paint, probably not as common. She's got a prosthetic arm. That was quite common. There was a spy I was reading about who had a prosthetic leg, and she was very prolific in her involvement in France, and the Germans and the Nazis, the Nazis were looking out for her because she had a limp. She had to disguise herself and huffle and stuff like that. She had a name for the prosthetic limb. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it had a male name. And she had to scale a mountain to get out of France so she could be picked up, and then she went back in later. And she was like, it was giving her trouble, so she radioed in, and HQ basically said, if it's giving you trouble, eliminate it. Essentially, just drop the leg. But that didn't stop her. She had a full-on prosthetic leg. She was a woman in a time where women weren't allowed to do anything, and were just coming in. It wasn't long after, but it was still after that women got given any sort of respect. That she had to do all this? Like, fucking, and you're sat at home complaining on your keyboards that women didn't fight in World War Two. Not factual what I'm about to say, but did any of you people watch Captain America? And when you watched Captain America, the first Avenger, were you complaining that there weren't any women spies with Agent Carter? You're like, oh, this isn't historically accurate, whilst watching a super genetic Chris Evans beat the crap out of a man who had a red skull for a face. Because I think you got your priorities wrong if that's what you're looking for. Now, if you are looking for a historically accurate World War II game, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed because, you know, I don't think DICE have ever done historical accuracy, because then it'd be a pretty boring game because you'd die and it'd end. But they do a good job of making it entertaining. We just had Battlefield 1. Now, I'd like you to take a look at that. Obviously, it's pretty ridiculous, you know, some of the things you can do. That's the point, it's a video game. But the story, the campaign, the single player, the little clips that you follow of different people and their different lives, although again, very action movie and very ridiculous, because that's the point, it's a video game. You don't want to be entertained. You don't want to be walking solidly in a straight line for 45 minutes to fight in a battle that you can't see the enemy in because they're volleying you with artillery fire and then die. That's not an entertaining game. You don't want to be in the trenches fighting a trench warfare where 90% of your day is walking up and down the mud, trying to keep your stuff clean, trying not to get ill, trying to survive, trying not to die, and then 2 minutes of fighting and you die again, or pray to forgive, you live, and then the next mission is the exact same thing. But that's not the same as the multiplayer. And what they were showcasing here for Battlefield 5 was clearly multiplayer. Although it may be heavily scripted and heavily computer generated, it was still the multiplayer. And they did promise that there would be war stories for the single player, which I think you can expect some more accuracy in the levels of detail to what they're talking about. But I wouldn't care for that in multiplayer. I don't want to go into a multiplayer game and it'd be like, look, you're playing this particular battle. Like, let's say it's Normandy, right? You're playing Normandy, and you're on the Nazi side. You're on the Germans. You're defending the beaches. You have to lose. I don't want to lose that game every time because history says that I lost that, and I don't want to win every single time I play as the Allies because that's just going to get boring. I also don't want to be running up Normandy Beach concerned that my immersion to this great and horrific war that people died and suffered in is ruined because one of the characters next to me is a woman. Do you care that much in your video game that someone else is getting to be better represented? I don't know about you, especially probably a lot of the female gamers out there. It's quite refreshing in a multiplayer setting to be able to play as a female character. Some games do it, some games definitely do it. But it's just, you know, it's not always there as a representation, and it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to have that aspect, to represent yourself, because you want to be you in the video game. In the single player, it's a bit different. If you're playing a character, that's fine. But we haven't seen that yet. And I will hold judgment on that until we do see it. So I ask you to take a look and really think about it. Watch the trailer again. Go do some reading up on history. Go expand your knowledge and decide for yourself how big of an issue you really think this is, and what really is historically accurate and what isn't in the video game that you're going to spend £40 to buy and then play. And then are you going to complain because every time you take 6 bullets your life regenerates? Oh, I should die, I just took 6 bullets. Just really think about it, and let me know down below, you know, constructively if possible. I know it's the internet and we're all used to just screaming at each other in blind fury, but just a little bit of decorum, and you know, agree, disagree, what you're looking forward to about Battlefield and what you're not looking forward to about Battlefield, and then, you know, let's see where we go from there. Have a good day.
You get a rasa? Because I got a few moves I know you'll like.